But tonight, we're celebrating Danny Dover and Ewa Chrusciel. Did I do that right? Close enough. I'm going to introduce them both, and then they'll read from their work. And Ewa was going to read first from her fourth collection of poems, two of which are in Polish, and the last, Strata, in English, won the 2009 International Book Contest. She's an associate professor of humanities at Colby-Sawyer College, and her poems have appeared in many books and magazines in Poland, England, Italy, and in the States. In addition, she's translated Jack London, Joseph Conrad, and others, and contemporary poets into Polish, which I think is a fascinating thing to do. Publishers Weekly Review says, "In Chrusciel's hands, objects exert their own gravitational pull, each one a little world, hidden, secreted away, and sacred," which I thought was a very good way of describing her work. And then Danny Dover, in his most recent book, Tasting Precious Metal, he takes us on a journey to some remote and unlikely places. Danny lives in Bethel, and he has a BA from Antioch, and he also has associate's degrees in surveying technology and keyboard technology. A very well-rounded person. And he was the piano technician at Dartmouth College for many years, and he continues work with pianos, and I sense some correlation between the poetry. And the quote that I wanted to read about his work is that Danny Dover's poems invite you in with their plain, direct speech, but before you know it, you're in a grand room where the air sparkles with similes and precise allusions, and secrets lie in the corners and crevices waiting to be discovered. And without further ado, I'm going to turn the mic over to him.
So much for the introduction, and to Lisa for having me here to Norwich Bookstore. Is it good? I feel like I'm bowing.
Yeah.
Great. Bow to you. Very good. Very good. Mm-hmm. I can spell my poems for you. So it's special to read here because some of the poems in this book originated next door in the Historical Society building in the group I belong to with Ivy. Ivy actually invited me to join, and with Nancy and Lisa and Giovanna and Jane and Marisa. So I will, and I got amazing feedback from them, and basically I kept revising with them. So they read the whole manuscript before actually it was accepted by Omnidon Press. And for that book, I actually did some research. I was interested in historical objects that Ellis immigrant took with them. So I would go to Ellis Island and track down the historical objects, but also thought about undeclared beliefs that they would sneak across the borders. And then I read about smuggling, so I wanted to invent the poetics of smuggling. I feel like I'll bump to it. We take the turf with us. We take the dirt with us. We smuggle mortality. We smuggle the dust. We carry the clay. We make the words out of little clumps of earth where all the word roots are, where the lines of poems spring from. Isn't it bacteria that turned the water into wine? To thy high requiem become a sod. Scatological belongings. We transmit literature through toilets. The turf is soaked with the metaphors of our country. The turf translates bones, not to be broken, the gas of our ancestors. It is a bomb, it sizzles. Do you see a mulberry tree in a mustard seed? We will cover the seed with our soil. We will transplant the seeds in rows 12 inches apart. And what fascinated me when I went to Ellis Island, actually all the little attachments that immigrants had. And it occurred to me that we really want to carry earthiness, the turf, and somehow the infinity, and that we want to somehow Well, maybe the transcendence is in our underpants, especially where we smuggle things. So it's fascinating, that disproportion, that we are made of mud, at the same time we are infinite. And this is protagonist of my book, a hoopoe, which is a Eurasian bird, which has many literary connotations. It's a real bird, at the same time it's mythical. So King Solomon sent hoopoe as a diplomat, because hoopoe can speak, to the Queen of Sheba to convert her to his religion. He's successful. And also in 12th century Sufi mystic Attar's Conference of Birds, hoopoe is the main protagonist. He takes all the birds of this world on a pilgrimage to see Simurgh, the ultimate mystery. When they arrive, only 30 birds manage to make the journey. The other birds actually commit suicides, turn around. They have their attachments. They can't get rid of their attachments. So only the birds who get rid of their attachments get to see Simurgh. And there are 30 of them, and Simurgh turns out to be 30. Every time I teach that book, I feel really bad for those birds. You know, the duck has to get rid of the attachment for water, owl for wisdom, parrot for treasures, and I think how much better it is. Like, the immigrants really carried things with them. You know, they did not get rid of their attachments. So it's interesting how we don't want to get rid of any desire we have. We want to embrace all. You know, and it happens to me every year, because I carry stuff with me and I get stopped when I cross the borders. I have books and sausages and Polish jam, and we really don't want to get rid of anything, and somehow I think it speaks of our desire for infinity. Can you feel the apparition? The hoopoe's wings beat under my blouse. The sound udud, udud, udud is tearing from my nipples. Pagan pole dancing. My breasts have Tourette syndrome. My breasts are in flux, as if singing church hymns, kneeling down, standing up, kneeling down. I have to stop and soothe them with new lullabies. The hoopoe is the Dibak messenger chattering under my bra. This action is not unprecedented. King Solomon sent the hoopoe across the oceans to the Queen of Sheba to urge her with religion. Pliny said nothing about the hoopoe. On the other hand, Kircher in his Collegio Romano had a hoopoe in his collection of skeletons, among bones of eagles, magpies, thrushes, and a Brazilian monkey. My valley of deprivation, my cloud of unknowing, pray for me, Upopa Epops. Convert me back to wonder. Cure my heart of such morbid desires to come home. It is you who take me across ocean, just as he once took all the world's birds on a pilgrimage to Simurgh, to a new land where jays are not jaded and finches do not fling seeds at small children. When I cross the border, I start hiccuping. The officer stares at my nipples. I carry wonder inside me. I bring abundance. I stir the wings within him. And I actually want to read a poem that started the whole book. It was an act of my own contraband. I buy a sausage at the airport before I leave Poland. Kiełbaska, kiełbasa, kabanos, kabanosik. This, my transcontinental dowry. The sacrificial baby of my tongue. Foreign gods hover over us. If God lets my sausage in, I will eat it like a saint, wreathed in incense, circle a table with Gregorian chants. Folkberg variations. The baggage carousel spurts my luggage out. With an air of conspiracy, I transfer this sausage from my carry-on into checked luggage. I look around. I pray for my sausage while I move towards customs. The Angelus trickles. The Angelus salivates. Saint George is about to put his spear through a sizzling dragon. My luggage goes through a sausage scan. Can an old sausage be born young again? The officer pulls me aside. The officer holds my sausage to the light, his babushka trophy. It's a sealed sausage, I declare with pride. I've brought a new species. But you declared no meats, the officer says. Sealed sausage is not a meat. Sealed sausage is a sealed sausage. I say, as the guardian angels of my sealed sausage swarm under the investigation light. The officer blinks when I repeat with determination, a sealed sausage is a sealed sausage. He looks blinded. My hypnotic alliteration throws him back into the waters of his childhood where eels jiggle Scottish dances. Oh, sweet detained sausage, saint of arrests, pray for us. May my new species have mercy on us. Escape at the borders. Oh, ovenbird, whose migratory song is a sausage, a sausage, a sausage. Dear sausage of martyrs, sealed patriarch, let the virgin liberty swallow it. But somehow, writing in English for me, because I'm non-native, is really also ceaseless smuggling, ceaseless border crossing. Like, in a sense, I think something in Polish, then I mistranslate it into English, then vice versa, and it's a constant shuffling, right? It's restless. The first time we went to Bulgaria with our parents, it was 1978. There was no toilet paper in Polish shops. What is humanity without the decent roll of toilet paper? Every time I saw the toilet paper, I would roll it secretly. I wanted to bring some luxury home. In Western countries, there was paper, but no truth to write on it. We knew the truth, but had no paper. No paper to wipe off the system. We carried it like a turf on our asses. What is the culture that cannot regenerate itself by healthy digestion? This is where we beheld the system. Not enough toilet paper to relieve our attitude. There is no good literature without good toilet paper. He wraps each hummingbird in cloth. They look like newborn babies. He sews each pouch into the inside of his underwear. He heads for the Rochambeau airport in Cayenne. What are the true desires in this disguise? The man did not know that hummingbirds calculate their own rates of return. The man did not know that bird means penis in some languages. Horror vacui. How many small birds can one have in his underwear? Do you see a mulberry tree in a mustard seed? Smuggling comes from a species of restlessness. It is a small creature. It promises intensity. It has a lingering nature. It likes to be wrapped in paper or plastic. It likes hiding places. It stirs its wings, stretches in flight. A hole of hummingbirds in his underwear. Alice 3. She takes a birch twig whisk, an X-ray of her land, for stirring butter, porridge, gravy. Birches make underground passages. They make new universes. They shed speckled skins. She takes the largest living organism. She carves new tastes into them. They comb the paths to new homes. They stretch for acres and seas. They shoot roots into clay dishes, into burlap floors. They tangle and mesh into windows. They whisk the curtain frills. They unleave. Winged forks from inside explode, scatter new letters into the air. They beat new wings. They take off. A bird of paradise out of the birch twigs. 47,000 stems from one root. Do you see a mulberry tree in a mustard seed? The Hoopoe says, when you have the ocean, why will you seek a drop of evening dew? And I actually smuggled into that collection, which was written in English, one Polish poem, which was originally written in Polish, then translated by Karen Kowacik into English, then mistranslated into that book. And actually that book has customs instead of notes, so I sort of revealed the truth there. But I thought I would read a poem in Polish in case you want to hear a foreign language, right? Oda Rzeszowska. Babciu ze złotek, którymi obwijałaś doniczki, projektantko wnętrz biednych, hula hop twoich spódnic zadartych na pola, królowo pieca i szuflad z łakociami, histeryczko od pajt chleba, grubo wyścielanych miodem, księżniczko odpustów, caryco domowych boleści, cykado miłostek, hipopotamie chondryczny, znawczyni pierdnięć tajemnych, pośmiertna panno młoda w garncu maku pochowana, jak ja do ciebie wrócę przez te światowe mokradła. And that's the original translation which got mistranslated in that book. So now you need to buy a copy to find it. Translated by Karen Kowacik, a poet laureate of one state in US, Indiana, yes. Rzeszów Old One. Grandma of flower pots, dressed up in gold foil, designer of shabby interiors. Your hula hoop skirts lie flipped up on the lawn. Queen of the oven and drawers, stuffed with candy. Hysteric, who scarfed hunks of bread upholstered in honey. Countess of church carnivals, Tsarina of household complaints, Cicada of suitors, Hippo of hypochondria, curator of covert farts. My posthumous bride now interred in a vat of poppy seed. How can I find you again in the bog of this world? And some poems are actually about, I wanted to elevate the idea of smuggling into smuggling Jewish children or Jews during the Holocaust in Poland. So there are some poems about Jan Karski, and that one is about Irena Sendler, a short lady who worked in resistance, and she was a Polish Catholic, and she smuggled thousands of kids out of Warsaw Ghetto. Still alive. Irena Sendler gets permission to work in the Warsaw Ghetto as a plumber. She smuggles babies in her toolbox and carries larger children in her sack out of the Warsaw Ghetto. Her dog knows when to bark to muffle the sounds of the crying children when Nazi soldiers are near. She carries the shrunk pebbles in wheelbarrows. 2,635 children ripple out of the ghetto. She's small and plump like a donut. Through the gutters, through the tunnels, through the fissures, blind moles dig their signs. Esther, Ezer, Aaron, Abigail, Becca, Imla will need to change their names and wrench their parents out of their palms. She buries their names in the jar. The names wriggle, the homunculi, the microscopic seahorses. Sendler eventually gets caught and tortured. I use here an ampersand to remember her wrenched body in a sealed mouth, in an hourglass. She's a holy icon. Sendler gets nominated for the Nobel Peace Prize along with Al Gore, a smuggler of trees. And Al Gore, of course, won. And the last poem, I actually couldn't decide. Prayer. I leave stones of ripples. My mouth spits out oaks, Korah, ancient rituals. Milk from St. Mary's breast, a crest of a hoopoe. A tulip tree, yellow birch, salmon rose, fiddlehead ferns, ruffled grouse. A flock of enunciations. Ingrate, spoiled, insulated. Now a shower after shower, a gesto after gesto, shindig after shindig. Mouth taps iron ghosts, bark means kora, keeps burning till it brings forth. Between country and country crocuses grow. Do not regret a crocus when woods are on fire. The storks align themselves with the lighthouses. Hummingbirds calculate rates of return. Between us, a memorare of raw seaweed. Left with a poem in my mouth, a sphere, a curled hedgehog, prickly, calm, inexhaustible, the desire for hooks in the wall. Thank you.
Deal with it.
Thank you, Eva. It's an honor to be here sharing this evening with you. And thank you to the Norwich Bookstore, especially for being a successful independent bookstore. It's a very valuable thing these days. I thought about this evening and not knowing Eva's poetry very well, but getting a sense of what some of her interests were, and a lot of things came to mind for me. And I think the first poem I'm going to read, because of the hoopoe, is a poem called Hummingbird. This is because over 40 years ago, I had this miraculous experience of having a hummingbird perch on my finger. And just so that it would continue to live, I had to write the poem. Otherwise, such things could be forgotten. So, Hummingbird. Boy, this is, oh, I can't do that, no. Very interesting. Okay, we got it. Hummingbird, a deep canyon of the Yuba, seared by Sierra's summer torch, high country snowmelt hoarded in white granite pools, dipped and cooled, mind and body forged and naked, with a tempered cleanse and open heart, I hold Hummingbird. Or rather, Hummingbird holds me under tiny claws, a fragrant liquid in a fragile feathered teacup. If I hold you, toe to finger, wildly precious and delicately adored, if I hold you with a weightless touch, a cautious contact riding my finger leaf to leaf, gentle passenger with wings at rest, tongue at work, lapping nectar. If I hold you, eye to eye, sizing one another, mutually stunned. If I hold you, already gone, in a subtle stir of canyon breath and whirring blink of wing beats, how shall we color this trust? So I got that off my chest. Now, the other thing that really occurred to me too is I'm obviously not new to this country, and yet I'm just one generation apart from being an immigrant myself, with a mother who was a 10-year-old orphan girl from the pogroms of the Russian Civil War. And so I'm a product of decades of the diaspora, my father's side also. And so I think I'm going to also read a poem that has to do with that, My People. My New York clan were short, solid stock, cut close to the ground by the wars in Europe. Their bubbly voices fizzing like seltzer in overheated apartments. Ambitions stored away with musty dress suits. Uncle Phil, strumming in a mandolin orchestra. Uncle Meyer's meager grocery and Yiddish poems, and tiny chain-smoking Aunt Fika primping wavy salt and pepper hair. These were my people. My ports of call riding the wild seas of the 60s, who taught of times you must make yourself invisible to survive. Uncle Sal, staring past my chin. Uncle Sal who fled Germany before the war. Through misty spectacles, staring past my chin into the face of 1937 Berlin. The Nazis are coming. You'll see, Sal chanted. You'll see, you'll see. And I suppose it's because of, I was always fascinated by all the stories that my parents had to tell, or what they selected to tell me. And it led to a lot of wandering on my part, a lot of fascination with other cultures, and a deep longing to understand other cultures, and what cultural identity really means. Eventually, it led me to Nepal. And in 1995, I found myself in a very remote corner of Nepal, and ended up changing my life because of a young boy that we met there. But first I'd like to read one of my first impressions of being in such a foreign environment. This is called Another Country. This also feels very close to some of what Ewa's been writing about. Just the sensuality of the environment of where you live, and feeling that in another country. When living in another country, listen for the murmur of child monks running late for lessons with their song of slapping sandals by an early morning window. Follow the weathered gaze of an old woman walking deep in prayer around a whitewashed temple. Wander in the dawn-lit trails of her canyoned face. Spread this mountain village through your fingers, braiding its lustrous strands into a thick cloak of cedar smoke, wet slate, and mustard oil. Soak in every moment. Let your skin of paper dissolve in a steady, warm drizzle of attention to the 10,000 sensations. So, this boy that I met in 1995 was a goat herder in one of the most remote corners on earth, a village of 13,000 feet. And in a random act of kindness, I suggested to my friends that we sponsor this boy to go to school in the city of Kathmandu, which was not only an impossible distance away, but culturally an entirely different world. And that was the beginning of a journey that has lasted for over 20 years. And on that day, I wrote this poem for this boy's mother. His name was Urce. It's called Stone Wall. You were not pretty, Urce's mother. Rugged, dark, and dusty face in a pale and yellow stubbled field, scything barley since dawn. Eye to eye, across the wall, with your steady gaze and dulpo tongue, the telling of it. Yes, understood, your awesome gift, my precious son. And the proud pain of it, the loss of him beyond this wall, thrust 1,000 years into your world, this eager boy, astride the stones, legs a-dangle, grinning, happy, growing generous, galloping heart, little rodeo rider, no walls in sight. So skip 20 years, fast forward. The goat herder is now 31 years old. He lives in New York. He's married to a wonderful woman. He has a baby son. This is how the world turns. And living as he does in New York now, it's the opportunity to visit him in Queens, where he lives, which has got to be one of the most culturally diverse places on the planet. So I wrote this for the train. This is a new poem. The train that you have to take to Queens these days. On the immigrant train, New York City. The Queens-bound subway known as Number 7 boards deep in a dusty cave below Manhattan's glossy mountains, then gathers speed on screeching rails, submerged beneath a tidal river, bursting out into brilliant sunlight like a well-kept secret boldly revealed. As you ride and ride, hardly noticed for your pale, dull skin, amid a pressing mass of faces, gleaming every shade of black or brown, like polished driftwood saved from shores of 100 nations. A pack of swaying pilgrims on shifting ground, careening above the asphalt rooftops and flim-flam streets they now call home. This is their ship of gambled dreams, a lurching vessel laden with all we've been or shall become, twisting on an ancient track across the sprawl and swirl and vast, rich regions of human kindness. So, moving on, there's the external landscape and there's the inner landscape. And I recently saw an old friend, grade school friend, and in talking to him I realized that we grew up with very fundamentally different memories of our childhood. This poem is called O Canada. Before gaining ground in the geography of girls, I first grew a crush on Canada, hoarding her stamps alone in my room and coveting their beauty like love notes posted from balsam forests and stunning bays of ice-rimmed indigo. But these were times when we believed in loving America and only America, pledging the flag with pious faith. So each school day, I swore allegiance like a shameless traitor, unaware of a friend who could never reveal how his body inhabited a foreign country, certain that no one would ever care to keep him among their most cherished collections. And on a lighter note, my father was a dentist, and I had the unusual experience of living with a dental office in the house, the bedroom directly above where my father worked. And so here's a poem about my memories. From school each day, I'd return to a room above the office of my dentist father. Over the piercing whine of molars filled and whimpering pleas of children trapped like cornered animals. And my father's voice, so caring and calm and soothing as mint, all drifting up through ceiling cracks with strains of muzak in a muted soundtrack for coming of age during warm afternoons of salacious groping with a chain-smoking girlfriend who soon would leave me alone in despair, scorned for spitting each time I French-kissed her full, luscious mouth. Disgust and desire and the shriek of the drill all throbbing together in the air of a room where I first learned it's possible to live with pain, or at least lie down a few feet above it. I have a friend who recently started a second family late in life. As luck would have it, he had twins. And one bleary-eyed day when I visited with him when they were about 2.5 years old, he had a smile on his face. I said, "How's it going?" And he said, "They're bouncing. From the moment they get up to the moment they go to sleep, they're just bouncing." So, thinking of that incredible energy, I wrote this poem called Playground. Consider the child who awakens happy, primed and charged to seize the gift of each new day. Watch how the sun excites her and her friends, bouncing bruised and battered like free electrons, undeterred by solid objects. Imagine the origin of our universe, the cosmic burst of nascent energy expanding out past countless galaxies to these pink-faced, laughing, pigtailed specks of scattered stardust swirling through the maple slanted morning light. I was also thinking one day about the notion that matter, mind, is neither created nor destroyed. And in a whimsical moment, this poem came to mind called "Nothing is Lost." Some morning, my missing keys may clatter from the tattered purse of a startled Greek widow arched over a bread shop counter. Or my fading tales of romance might be bundled and sold to shy Shanghai teens on their first dates. Even these piano riffs, tossed out like confetti, could rain down on a puzzled farmer in Bali, pressing clumps of 16th notes deep into warm, loamy rice paddy mud. And the 1,000 names and places slip through the mind's worn pockets every day. Why, they lie waiting to be found again, sleek coins scattered on the dusty playground of tomorrow's memory. for my last poem, I'm going to read the title poem, where the title of the book was derived from. The poem is called Yukon Territory. And I tell people it took 40 years to write this poem because I think we all can look for places or times in our lives which were a nexus of some kind, where we know that looking back we can say, oh yes, if I hadn't been there at that time, everything else would not have unfolded the way it did. And so for me, that was true of a brief time that I spent in far northern Canada. A destination first takes shape in the mouth. Syllables rolled together like gold nuggets in a sluice box, and gathered into a feast of dust-choked highway until one evening you find yourself alone outside a mine shaft on night shift. Your hard hat beam no match for a burst of northern lights and wolf howls. You are in the spring of your life. Your name, still a destination for others yet to be born, with only a lunchbox at midnight to tide you over to another Arctic dawn. How is it that 2 feet can track through a billion stars so the eyes may follow later? Look now where you've been, where you once thrashed through thick brush like a grazing animal. It's all that remains, this trampled grass, a taste of precious metal. Thank you.
Well, we do have a little bit of time. We've got question and answer. If you both want to stand up and field some questions and answers. Just a short.
I'll take your questions and you take
Okay. Just for a little bit, and then before I forget, Phyllis has an announcement.
Should I do it now?
Yeah,
Okay.
this is a good time.
I welcome all of you to our home for a celebration of these wonderful poets. We live 2 doors down from the Congregational Church. You don't have to move your car. You have to walk about 2 minutes and go down the driveway, and the lights are on, and we'd love to have you. And we have, to tempt you, my husband's homemade guacamole and some other and some wine and other things. So we hope that some of you will come and talk to the poets and join us for a celebration of this evening. 23 Church Street. You can't miss it. 2 doors down from the church.
So, you guys want to do a little Q&A? You don't have to. If you could ask him one question, what would it be?
Don't do that.
What was the sensation on your fingers when the hummingbird perched?
Oh my God. Oh boy, do I have to say this? I grew up with a parakeet, so I knew what to do. I just talked to the hummingbird like my parakeet, and it worked. It's really happened. It took about an hour, and the hummingbird never went away. It just stayed there. And I started very carefully with the stick first, tried to get it on the stick. Then I put the stick, moved a little closer, tried to get it on my finger. So that really happened.
What did it feel like on your finger?
I know, that's...
Just make it up.
Felt like it didn't happen.
Were you wearing red?
I wasn't wearing anything.
That's why it happened.
Thanks for asking.
It's your turn, Eva.
Well, next time I'll be in my my Eva's birthday suit, pretending I'm a feeder. No, because when I go to where the feeders are, I actually pretend I'm a feeder and I put my finger and they perch, right, for a second, and they really scratch very delicately the finger. I love it. It's like a little spy, you know, on your hand.
His claws were too small
Yeah.
to get on my finger. It was like, so it was more like a balancing act for the hummingbird. And I had to be really careful, otherwise it was gonna, well, it wouldn't fall over, it would fly away.
I want to know what happened to the sausage.
Well, so the sausage was not confiscated. The officer basically thought I was a moron, and I meant to act like a moron. And he just said, next time you cross the border, remember sausage belongs to the family of meat. No, actually no. I lied to you. He did take the sausage. Now that I remember. He didn't give me a fine, which at this point you can get $300 fine, right? So he actually said, I'm not going to give you a fine as long as... But I am on their blacklist, actually, because they write it down, right? So I fear to take sausages. Yeah. Do you have any other questions for us, or maybe at the party?
Maybe we'll do it one-on-one as you're signing
Yes.
books.
Oh, yes. Okay, great. Thank you so much.
Thank you all for coming, and hopefully we'll see you at one of the other poetry readings. And I think we're going to set Eva and Danny up at the front, and you can get your book signed. So, thank you.